See, you put that in your instructions. Hey, use Chrome.
Hey, they can hear us.
Has left us in want. We think too much and feel too little. More than machinery, we need humanity.
We know the air is unfit to breathe and our food is unfit to eat. As if that's the way it's supposed to be. We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy.
Silence! The great and powerful Oz knows why you have come.
You've got to say, I'm a human being. God damn it. My life has value.
You have meddled with the primal forces of nature.
Don't give yourselves to brutes. Men who despise you, enslave you, who regiment your lives, tell you what to do, what to think, or what to feel, who drill you, diet you, treat you like cattle, use you as cannon fodder. Don't give yourselves to these unnatural men with machine minds and machine hearts.
It's time to buckle up for making sense of the madness.
And who loves you? And who do you love?
Hey, everybody. Jason Bermas here on what may be the eve of what we may remember to be World War III. And I don't think I'm being hyperbolic about that. I think it's bad news brown. I want to be 100% wrong that right now we can be in a place where this could actually de-escalate. And I do not remember the second Trump administration as where it all went sideways. But I guess we are going to see. And we're going to be talking about that. Bilderberg this past weekend, the info war, if you will, with none other than my good friend of now, geez, man, well over 15 years, probably closer to 20, Rob Dew, who is a producer over at InfoWars and of the Alex Jones Show. Before we get it kicked off, I do want to let everybody know again, there are no more paid gigs. I need your support. The links are down below. Also, give me a follow on X. And if you are watching for the first time on YouTube, for the first time in 5 years, we have actually begun to gain subscribers. If you want to follow my guest, he is over at Dews News. That's Dews with an S, News with a Z. And you can check out his animated fun stuff. Really should be picked up by Adult Swim series Grunions over at their own YouTube channel. All right, Rob, let's just beef it right up.
Yeah.
What is your assessment?
It's about to go down.
What do you think right now? Like, I mean, obviously, you're in the mix of not only a news organization that has been vilified and attacked from all angles for a long time. I may have a lot of disagreements with some of the perspectives of a multitude of hosts over there, but I've always been a huge advocate that there is no intended malice at InfoWars, and it is, at the very tip of true independent media. So you being there right now with what's going on, I can only imagine the phone calls, the emails, the behind-the-scenes talks. What is your feeling on what is about to happen? Because I do think we're now past the brink of the United States actually entering a hot war with Iran, and that could escalate into, again, what we themed this episode as World War III.
Right. So it was interesting today. Trump didn't actually come out and talk when I think people thought he was going to come out and talk. And there was some anticipation that he may come out and say something to the world. He didn't. I don't even believe Netanyahu said anything. So they're keeping their cards close to their chest. There was an interesting tweet from an Saudi Arabian television station that said they're going to do something big tonight. Iran is going to do something big that'll be talked about for centuries, but that could also be, the reincarnation of Baghdad Bob coming in and saying something. So, you got to take a lot of that with a grain of salt. I think the current overview of InfoWars is, hey, we don't want to go into another war. We don't want to fight these wars. We want peace. We should be working for peace. And it seems like, well, to me, I can't figure out, these people, these Muslims and Jews just don't want to seem to get along.
Well, they're just wild stuff. It's almost like since the beginning of history, or at least recorded history. Let's break some things down right now, okay? Because here are my big issues and kind of, I guess, thoughts on the whole matter. I said this about the first administration. I think the guy went in there thinking he was going to be Superman and really going to be able to do all these things. And everything was going to be fine. Now, obviously, you get 4 years of Biden, which is just so outwardly horrendous to the level of you have a dementia patient who is in charge of nothing. But not only is he in charge of nothing, there's really nobody in his administration that's running the day-to-day. I would say Anthony Blinken, he is somebody that was very capable, spanned administrations. He would be the one.
Susan Rice was probably doing some stuff behind the scenes.
For sure, but when I say that, she didn't have a title like Blinken. You know what I mean? Right. Certainly within that administration. When I talk about, I would say recent puppetry, you talk about the second Bush administration, George W. Bush. And obviously he was running nothing. But the names that were in the vice president, Dick Cheney, Paul Wolfowitz, Donald Rumsfeld, Condoleezza Rice, even his press secretaries like Ari Fleischer and Tony Snow. Those were competent people, whether you liked what they were doing or not, they were doing stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they were adults. They were adults in the room doing bad things and bilking the American people, I think, for millions of dollars.
I mean, more than bilk. I mean, they're literally what I would call this kind of modern Israeli perspective, which is the neocons on steroids. You talk about, full spectrum dominance. You talk about, the Project for a New American Century. Mm-hmm. All of that perspective goes into the current perspective of Netanyahu and those behind what's going on now. So then I ask myself, we're done with that administration that was absolutely terrible and pretty much everybody agreed on it. And even, the apologists out there can't look you in the eye and say Biden ran anything, right?
Yeah.
The second time around comes. Now, I was real skeptical, right? I was not necessarily on board. And
I had more hope.
Here's my thing. And I'm sure I'm going to get pummeled and have been pummeled for this. But I come from this perspective where the last year and a half, 2 years, I'm on tour with a lot of these people. I'm seeing them behind the scenes in a way I've never seen them before. Whether it be his kids, Donald and Eric, or people like Kash Patel, who will become the FBI director. I mean, we're talking about, I'm literally around a lot of these people, okay? And, Clay Clark, God bless his soul, is letting me say whatever I want about transhumanism that's outside of the Trump perspective, right? And even opening one of these things. And in fact, the tail end one just before the election, doing a 40-minute lecture. And, at the time when Musk was starting to really get behind the Trump administration.
Well, that's good.
I
think
exactly.
those are all positive things. Yeah.
And that's what I try to tell people is, you know me. I've marched with Code Pink before. It doesn't matter if you're left or right. If you're going to allow me to speak the truth, I'm going to ally with it. So I did have hopes that Trump, for instance, was going to be able to stop Ukraine, Russia before day one, like he said.
Right.
That he was going to be able to fix the Middle East, because even then, the limited strikes on Iran and the far from limited strikes that had happened in Lebanon, in Beirut and others, extremely dangerous, underreported here. And then you have the pager incident where you're incorporating Lavender AI, aka Palantir technology, into 30,000 targets, and then you're remotely detonating death devices in the public square on people that were on that list, right?
Well, not to mention creating a whole almost industry to manufacture these and then deliver them. I mean, that was a high-end operation.
If that's what happened, I'm still kind of highly skeptical that they did infiltrate those and that it's not embedded in all the hardware. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And I mean, that should frighten people as well, because now they're talking about round 2 of that. And if it's in those type of hardware, it could be in any type of hardware, right? Whether it be a cell phone, a pager, Lord knows, but something, obviously a device you would carry. And I know I've been rambling, but my greater point is, how much power does the president have? Like, seriously. Like, does he have, like, what's the real power structure, man? And I know we've talked about this for years.
It seems to be nothing, really, of what his power base is. In terms of anything he was doing, there's automatically a federal judge ready to go who's able to see this case and immediately rule in the plaintiff's favor immediately. And it's almost every time. And then you have to get these cases up to the appellate court or the Supreme Court. So I think you are, and these are things that I don't think would ever have been challenged by anybody else. But when Trump does it, it's suddenly bad. I just tweeted something today that the White House put this out, so take it with a grain of salt. But they said, I have the image here, but Border Patrol didn't release a single illegal into the U.S. last month. I voted for that. I 100% voted for that. That's the kind of stuff I want to see. And I've been very critical of the Border Patrol and how they were working under Biden, how they were just bussing people in and facilitating the human smuggling part. And they knew that too. They were, obviously not happy with what they were doing, but I guess it was this thing of, well, I'm just doing my job, type of mentality. And so it's sad because you would like to see Trump get a lot of this stuff done. He is getting some things done. We haven't seen tax cuts yet. It's like we're missing out on, anybody being held accountable for what happened the last 4 years. They're like, suddenly Kash Patel's talking about statute of limitations. And I mean, I know a good personal friend of mine had all of his statute of limitations erased for a court case. They just didn't exist for him in 2 cases in 2 different states. But suddenly Kash Patel's like, oh, statute of limitations, we can't do anything. And, and Bongino's sitting there like, yep, nope, statute of limitations, our hands are tied, which I'm thinking is a big cop-out. Because if nothing else, put the evidence out there for us to see. We are getting some things out there. I guess they came out today and said the FBI was asked to erase some files about, China sending in 20,000 IDs, which I don't know if that would have made a dent in the election or not. And honestly, I don't think that's where the fraud was going. I think it was in these mail-in ballots.
And let me just stop, because I saw that story, and that's kind of one of the things that really does annoy me about social media, about a story like that can go viral. When I read that, more than likely, whether that had to do with voting in 2020, it's probably a plethora going to college kids that are going to get drunk.
Or high school kids, yes.
Well, I mean,
and it's a company selling them to make money. Yes, I totally agree. And then maybe that's why it got quashed. Maybe like, oh, we found out what it really was. But hey, let's not look at these, bags and bags of mail-in ballots that are just appearing out of nowhere and being driven up at 4 a.m. It's like none of that. We don't ever get to look at that.
Well, let's not have an executive order banning all proprietary software and hardware by third-party companies to control any of our elections, right? Sure. Let me pull it back a little bit, because you started it in a place that I think
that would get quashed immediately by some judge.
Well, that's scary. That's all of this. All right, so here's the deal. Yeah. Going back to what you said in the very beginning about the Trump administration trying to do good things, I would be totally remiss and I would be a hypocrite if I didn't say it was a good thing that he pardoned all the January 6ers, something that you wouldn't have got with the Kamala Harris administration. 100%. Just on that alone, and coming through on that, and I understand that it's because it's his political party and it's people behind him, whatever. It's still a scam and a setup, and the things they did to those people were terrible. He pulled through on Ross Ulbricht about 48 hours after he said he was originally going to, but he did that. At the same time, you do have this kind of weird thing where at the tail end of the Biden administration, they cut this deal with Assange and everybody's just silent about it. Like, you remember that? Like, they cut the deal with Assange and it kind of solidifies what Assange did into terrorism, because he had to plead to, this guilty thing that was put through the Trump administration as well. And it was never talked about in the debates, wasn't talked about in the media, barely in the alternative media, etc. That's a big issue with me. We mentioned Patel, right? Patel did my show a couple years ago. And back when it was live to tape, we would have these commercials in the middle. I asked Patel, and I put him on the spot about signature reduction. And for those that don't know,
I read a lot about after you mentioned it to me. I'm like, holy, and, it's part of InfraGard is what it seems like. It's an offshoot of that and comes through, which has been around for a long time. We gotta have people who are eyes and ears everywhere.
the thing that's scary about this is this article's now been around for 3.5, 4 years, right before the Ukraine.
Yeah.
It was a program then that was around for a decade, had no oversight. In the very lead paragraph, you realize that they're embedded in every major company you can imagine. So that's Google, that's X, that's all these. And I said, when you have that, and he acted like I was like Q and nonsense, bro. And he hung up and he left. He waited till it was done, and he hung up and he left. I didn't have a lot of faith in the man after that, because it was an article that was extensive on how just one individual had access to essentially every database that we have in the United States, federal or state. Pretty scary.
That's why I don't mind that I'm on Safari. 'Cause I think whatever you're on, they're gonna get you.
Well, we can get into privacy in a minute, but this should let people know. So he's got access to the Social Security office, the DMV, whatever he needs to make an identity. And then it goes even further when you get down. He's being followed with the guy. He's got DARPA technology where he can wear a hand skin glove with anybody's biometrics on it and put human oils to emit out there. So again, they got your DNA. Yes, they could frame you very quickly. I mean, we got masked murderers out there right now, folks, is all I'm saying.
Let me ask you this about the mass murderer. Did you know his height?
No. I have barely looked into it, but go ahead.
All right. 5'1".
Uh-huh.
Very odd. Very odd height for a hitman. Guy who's going around picking up bodies. Like 5'1"? Really? That's short. That's pretty damn short.
Yeah, dude's a tall guy, everybody. He's got a little bias, okay? So, I've prayed, one of those
5'1"?
things.
I mean, come on. What is this guy doing? He's going to the Congo at 5'1"?
There's just
they don't let him in the country.
There's so many but going back to this thing, you have no government oversight over all this.
A lot of things. Yeah, and this program is widespread. It's not just like 5 people are in it.
No.
And these people bitching about Doge. It's like, well, what about this? Is this something we could talk about? Is this something we showcase? No, we don't talk about this because it's shadow government. It's parallel construction. And it's so they can go back and say they want to either frame you or get information on you. They can get it all after they go, oh, we want him to do this. And they're like, okay, well, here's all the stuff we can build to make that case.
Or let me bring it a little bit further than that. Okay. So let's say they just want to work with you. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
They want, but you're not interested in working with the CIA. I'll use the Sean Parker example. For those that don't know who Sean Parker is, he is the Justin Timberlake character in the movie The Social Network about Facebook. So he's the hip guy that comes in with the Zuckerberg and, essentially brings Facebook into this place where Peter Thiel gets involved. It becomes an IPO on the market, et cetera, et cetera. Sean Parker at 16 was recruited by the CIA. Now, Sean Parker said, no mas, I don't want to be involved. He did a summer camp instead. Now, if you got programs like this, maybe that guy's working at the summer camp. Maybe he's buddying around. And then all of a sudden, remember Sean Parker is the guy that creates Napster. Well, Napster not only is, the big piracy thing that gets more government oversight and regulation, et cetera, but it becomes Spotify. Right. So even if he didn't want to work with the CIA, I would be hard-pressed to think the CIA didn't get to work with him if they wanted to. So if you got a signature reduction program, maybe you just want to be in the boardroom. Maybe you're not even trying to blackmail somebody. You're just trying an influence campaign. And that person literally has no idea, the 20 years you're working there, that you have anything to do with the government.
Well, let's look at what's going on now in Israel. They're saying they have Mossad agents all in the Iranian leadership, and that they've recruited these people from at a young age. So that's just the same type. It's almost the same type of program. The CIA is sort of like the Mossad, and they're going around saying, hey, we're not going to need you. You just go and do your job. Here's a board position. And then, when your thing, your subject comes up in the nanosphere, we're going to ask you some questions and ask you for information, and you're going to give it to us, or you're going to have You're going to suddenly get an IRS investigation.
So, that's a good place.
I mean, that's how I see it.
No, I mean, I think that you're absolutely correct. I think that, well, first of all, I think that people can be, number one, bought off first. You can try to make them comfortable first. If they're not happy with being comfortable, like you said, then you start threatening them with the audits or
carpet of bombs or carpet of gold.
Yeah.
What do you want?
And for those that don't know that quote, that is prior to 9/11, I believe.
How old
August.
are the people we're talking to?
Well, I mean, listen, man, I got a lot of. You say that we're 20 plus years deep, bro. Have you seen the TMZ documentary they finally put out for free 2 weeks ago on United 23 yet?
Oh, no.
Must watch. I mean,
Okay.
it totally eviscerates the official version of events 1,000%. So, Rob was around post Fabled Enemies. I think it was right after Fabled Enemies you came in while I was working on Invisible Empire. Yeah. But in that, I had a small section on United 23 because you had these individuals that were described as quote unquote Muslim in appearance. Now you find out why that's said. That they looked like they were getting ready to hijack the plane. That their luggage had all the same things that were in Atta's luggage that didn't make it, the flight manuals, the Quran, the instructions, all that. And now you find out... All the evidence. Well, now you find out, well, again, I put this in Fabled Enemies, but they found weapons on other planes, the plane next to it. All four of them, the reason they described Muslim in appearance is because there was a man dressed in a burqa on that plane. They had a small child with them as well. Okay. Wow. It gets even wilder than that. So then after they excavate the plane and leave it, Rob. Now remember, they said they couldn't find the people because of their identification was fake. Remember? But remember, now we're expected to believe the hijackers that did the same thing didn't give fake identification.
Sure, yeah.
But it gets better.
Only these guys.
They see the pilot and three of the stewardess, one of which does not want to go on camera. After everybody's been evacuated, two people on the plane, for some reason, on the runway. And then later, when they're talked to by the FBI, because there's still no actual FBI reports, but they absolutely talked to them, the FBI asked them whether or not anybody was down below in the electronics section because the hatches were open. So now you got two things. The pilot seems to think that the two people got on the runway, went under the plane, and then through the hatches and got weapons off the plane. I tend to think there's the possibility those two people were in the plane the whole time and in the electronics section and there to make sure that they could override anything and remotely control the plane. Now it gets even better.
But then why would they? I guess they were going to suicide themselves.
Or,
that would be the theory.
I mean, I think there's still a lot of questions on what planes hit what buildings. You know what I mean? What if you're the literal black ops? And again,
you're just taking them to that field somewhere where they were all flown.
Let's just say that let's put on our speculation or conspiracy hat. Okay, let's say
mine's in my garage.
You want to take over the electronics of the plane, but you don't want to just do it with remote global hawk technology. You want to make sure inside your two guys have the gas masks. That you have the hijacking for the, whatever, and then you just gas everybody.
The cover story, yeah.
Yeah, and put them down and you remotely control something else there. Because you have so many other hijackings going on at that moment. You have 20 plus on the radar. So that's a very big possibility. Now, here's the biggest kicker of it all. The FBI actually brought in a bunch of people that night and put them in a lineup. They brought in fake people. None of them were the people that these people saw. So they went out of their way to have a fake lineup, and to this day, they've never brought these people in. And you've never even heard about them.
And was Mueller brought in after 9/11, or was he there for 9/11?
For 9/11, the week of. He was the deputy director for some time. See,
okay, so he was in.
Robert Mueller worked closely with Bill Barr during the Bush administration on the Noriega stuff. So, that was the crossover because you got to remember Barr was a lawyer. Or I'm sorry, he was in the CIA before he became a lawyer. And then after he became a lawyer, he was like 2 years deep in the CIA. He becomes the youngest attorney general under the first Bush administration before he becomes Attorney General again under Trump. So in that, he not only worked with the Justice Department all over, but he also worked with private firms like Kirkland and Ellis, who were Epstein lawyers. In fact, he actually talked about how he would possibly have to recuse himself from everything Epstein from that private work. So Bill Barr and Robert, as soon as I heard Robert Mueller and the Russiagate reports, I did big videos on these, how they were buddies forever and literally worked hand in hand. So bad news Brown on Bobby Mueller. And that's the other thing, man. You talked about the word accountability. Where is it on anything?
Where is it?
On anything,
Nobody's
bro.
getting it.
On anything,
Statute of limitations.
So let me bring it even further. I mean, I know this is probably a war conversation. The rhetoric is great. You know, I had G. Edward Griffin on in response to that Andrew Callahan video. He contacted me.
Yeah.
He wanted to do a big video. So we were talking about the rhetoric. And I said, in a way it's good because it's on the surface. At the same time, a lot of people take it too far and then make themselves look bad by you're literally spouting not just misinformation and disinformation, just totally wrong stuff and stuff that gets into a dangerous level. But then you have things like Bobby Kennedy. Now, RFK Jr. for me has probably done the best out of the administration so far. We'll see. I mean, long way to go. But he's on Dr. Phil for the first time talking about solar radiation management, geoengineering, and saying, we think it's a DARPA program. So again, what the hell, man? Why can't we stop? We've got now local legislation. In my state of Iowa, my state senator had a hearing. What can we do? If we've got the literal executive branch, Rob, talking about these things as if they can't do anything about it,
I know.
What are we doing?
What power do they have? You almost have to have some sort of deputized group of people, and they all have to go out, and everybody has to get rounded up at the same time, which I don't even know how you do that. And maybe they're making cases for them. I don't think so. When I looked at Bongino and Cash during that Bartiromo interview, I was like, oh, man, this is not good. This is sad. This is really sad because Cash was walking around talking like he's got a big stick and he's going to use it. And,
everybody's got their friggin' chest puffed out, bro. And you know, I've been around for a long time, and I've been a realist because I had that chest puffed out 20 years ago. In 2005 and 6, we're going to get these guys. They're going to jail. Like, we're going to no. And now I'm just like, oh boy. and this is what I say because I don't want to be Bobby Bummer, but I got to be Ronnie Realist. And it's true. I'm not Donnie Downer, everybody. You've got to be able to navigate the things that ultimately you can't change. Right. And on a macro level, that's going to be the economy, right? Yep. Yeah, but you got to micromanage those things. It sucks. But at the same time, I've always tried to cover it in an honest manner and not played team baseball. And you know as well as I do, over the last, especially, since the Trump phenomenon, you've seen a lot more team baseball, yes?
Yeah. I have seen a lot more team baseball, but I think here at the base level, the Trump people aren't getting up on stage going, white people are the problem in America. And I can live with that. I can live with them not doing, but when Biden gets up and says white supremacy is the worst thing in our country, and he's got red lights behind him, and that emboldens people to think that white people are bad. And I worked in Switzerland. I probably told you some of my Switzerland stories, and it was funny. My boss who was a drinker. She would get drunk at night and then start telling me how racist America was. Okay. And this was during the time that Yugoslavia was in a civil war. So you have Bosnians, Serbians, and Croatians, 3 types of Slavic people all fighting each other. Now, that to me is like, I wouldn't say it's racist, but it's like 3 groups of basically the same type of white people couldn't get along with each other. And I'm sure there's a lot of myriad of reasons for that, but at the base, they're not Africans fighting Muslims, fighting, Germans. It's 3 types of white people that couldn't get along. And I'm like, we do a pretty good job here overall. Now it's gotten worse. And I think it's all started with Obama, with him coming out and just saying, when the Trayvon Martin stuff was happening, he would go in there and stoke that stuff and get people to fight with each other. And we saw all that stuff in Ferguson and everywhere else, where at night it would turn into these crazy type of riot things that, were kind of turned into must-see TV for a while. And I don't know why it turned into that. I don't know how it's going to turn away from that, because now you've got groups of white people that are like, you know what? We don't want to be around black people. We don't want to be around other people of color because we can't get along with them, or they don't want to get along with us, which I think, and that's like on a cultural level. That's not an economic level or a government level, we get into there. But although you did see some of that in the government. So we've got to come together and just go, hey, we're all going to start treating each other better to try and work this thing out. Otherwise, we are going to kill each other. We are going to blow each other off the fucking map.
Well, let me just say this about the culture war and all these things. Number one, I do think it's blown out of proportion, and all these hot button issues. I think that, one, in the mid to late 90s into the early 2000s, it really felt like in this country, like the race thing wasn't an issue. We'd moved on. And I'm talking like pre 9/11 too, because at that point we'd also kind of moved on. At least we thought we did, from the idea of war. Like the Russians were starting to be our buddies. That was normalized. This is before Muslim hype. And really the mantra was kind of, Martin Luther King Jr. Day had just now really been solidified and accepted. And people were like, yeah, no, I'm all about the content of somebody's character and not the color of their skin. And as much as people want to take hot steaming dumps on Woodstock 99, take a look at Woodstock 99. I was there with DMX and Korn and all these hip hop acts, and there was a blend in upstate New York.
Hey, I was there in 94. Same thing.
Yes.
All types of people, all types of music, everybody getting along. I didn't see one fight. I saw people giving each other water. I saw people helping each other when they fell down. There was rain and mud, but it was a very chill situation. I thought the 90s were comparatively tame until everything post 9/11. Then it just turned, and I think that's what it is. It's turned into, they've turned up these frequencies to get us all into a point where we can't stand each other, or we don't want to be around each other, or we don't want to even listen to people anymore.
Well, I think there's a lot of tribalism. But now, let's fast forward 25 years, right? Now, I've been taking care of two, they're now teenage black girls, 16 and 14. We're in the Midwest now. Now, we were in upstate New York, and in upstate New York, there's still a little racism, where one of the kids would call them, you look like the color of poop and blah, 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 things like that. Mm-hmm. Now, every once in a while, some rich white kid will drop an N-bomb on my nieces. And I just got to be like, and by the way, we're not just like we're in the richest area of the Quad Cities in Bettendorf. So I would imagine it's a little more hyper concentrated, but there's plenty of black people here. Okay. I just want to make that really clear. I'm on the Illinois border, everybody. This is like a, very integrated area where, one of the reasons I picked it here, because I thought, not only they would have opportunity, but they would be able to see and interact with more people that, looked like and acted like them. And they refer to it, because we haven't raised them ghetto. The black people that are ghetto and how, those type of things. But I just tell them, look, number one, basing, your hatred or dislike on somebody because of the color of skin couldn't be something stupider. Okay. Couldn't be dumber. And I go, kids and people in general are going to dig at you on what affects you the most. Mm-hmm. So if they know that's going to affect you and you're going to have a reaction, they're more likely to do it to you. So you always have to remember that people are mean and cruel. Right. And I've just done, Rob, I'm in this to prevent the victimhood mentality. And it's not, by the way, it's not just black people that have it. I have to tell you what, my family is rife with victimhood. And I hate it. It kind of circles back to kind of that personal responsibility. You got to clean up your own house. But, I mean, if you want to be involved in this game, I think that you also have to be intellectually honest. And I'm being intellectually honest right now. World War III kicks off, everybody. Things going to change a lot.
It's going to get a lot worse. Gas is going to get a lot more expensive. Everything's going to get a lot more expensive. And, you might even see some weird types of, I wouldn't say Well, the shortages will happen after about a month. That's when you'll start seeing a lot of shortages because we got to do stuff for the war effort. But you're gonna start seeing calls for people going. They're gonna need bodies if we start throwing in bodies into this war. I'm too old to get drafted, but my kids aren't. And they're not going. As far as I'm concerned, they're not. No Iranian ever called them the N word. As to quote Muhammad Ali.
I tell you what, I mean, Muhammad Ali, damn right.
I got to show you this story though.
Okay.
Check this out. This
Okay.
is recent. I have a friend he's Iranian, but he looks very he's dark and he looks very Aboriginal because he plays didgeridoo. So you think the guy's Aboriginal because he's an amazing didgeridoo player. He's also a painter and a sculptor, and he hangs out at Barton Springs a lot. Chill dude, very cool. I've known the dude for 20-something years. Great friend of mine. We post on Facebook, just got a visit from the FBI today. Literally 2 FBI agents, man and a woman, came to his house and wanted to talk about some of his Facebook posts. And he's like, well, I don't even have any bad Facebook posts. Look, this is what I'm all about. Here's my didge. Here's my pottery. These are my paintings. This is my clothing line that I make. This is what I do. I'm not about violence. I don't think those thoughts. I'm all positive. But he had to sit there. I couldn't believe he sit there and talked to him. I was like, I can't believe you talked to him. He's like, I even played some didge for him. So it's like, but it's like that's how kind of crazy it is now. If you're an Iranian and you're posting anything, somebody's watching it and it's getting flagged. And the shit's getting flagged a lot quicker now because it's not humans that have to watch it anymore. It's just computers. So you need to watch out, if you're going to post something thinking you're going to, it's cutesy and you're going to get away with it, you're not going to get away with it. You're going to get somebody coming to your house asking you questions.
But that's a horrible thing because we've already seen how it has literally been weaponized outside of even quote unquote first world warfare or things of that nature during the COVID 1984 nightmare, right? And social media globally. Let me take that a step further. Friend of mine, Stuart J. Hooper, does great work, PhD, just got his PhD, did a video recently on basically not only what's going on, but the fact that Pakistan is a first world nuclear nation, and if they decide to get involved, and again, a nuclear bomb used by a nation or set off anywhere or a dirty bomb.
At this point, it's not going to be good.
It changes everything. It changes the whole world. And he got such a bot reaction. I've never seen it. Like I've reposted dozens of his videos. And all of a sudden it's like and I look at these accounts and they all want us to go to war with Iran. None of them are following either me or him. No. They've got the Israeli
they've got up on their feed.
They've got the Israeli flag in their bios, all these things. Yeah. And then I literally I post a screen grab of the fact that Trump has sent warplanes there, and I'm like, this is total insanity, and blah 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 blah. And I've never seen so many pro-war bots on this platform. I get somebody within 5 minutes not following me, going like, "You're a liar," blah blah blah. And then I went to go check his account; he'd already blocked me. There's no response whatsoever. The social media campaign right now is in full force for this thing to push forward, and that's extremely dangerous.
And people are lining up on sides like, you have to support Trump, you have to do this. If Trump tries to commit troops to the ground, I'm not supporting him. I'm not even supporting throwing the ships there. Now I can see why he's doing it. Now some of his posturing is coming off as, hey, I'm going to show my hand to bluff, hopefully to bluff, and get these guys to the table to get them to work something out.
All right, well, let's stop it there.
I don't think the Israelis want to negotiate. I don't think there's any negotiating.
Here's the deal. Where's the negotiation? Because when I see Israel, they're doing whatever they want. And they have for a long time. And so here's my problem. We both know that October 7th is fishy as hell. Okay? Just ballpark, everybody. Palestine doesn't have an air force. They came in on hang gliders. Okay, all the evidence shows that you had people internally that knew about this 2 years, 1 year before. Ben Swan has done an amazing 15-minute piece where he really lays out all of these things where it looks like maybe not even just a stand down, but a made it happen on purpose scenario. Then you look at the aftermath of that. First of all, the United States is on the ground with special forces when the attack happens. I'm sure that's just a coincidence. And then they sent more. So once again, just like the New York Times admitting that really the United States has been running the war from the beginning in bases out of Germany and France with NATO, the U.S. has been on the ground there. Not extensively, but we've caught them also with the aid ships there. They're doing special forces ground stuff with the Israelis.
I wouldn't doubt it. Somebody's got to laze targets.
Listen, man, it's 100%.
These targets don't laze themselves.
So, like we discussed earlier, they've done Lebanon. We've seen what's happened in Syria.
Yeah.
Obviously, Gaza is no longer Gaza anymore. It's done. It's leveled. It's done. And then when Trump came out and basically said there was no more Palestine, that's not a good thing. That doesn't help the situation. If you have a nation state and a leadership that has openly talked about the quote unquote greater Israeli project, and you have these fervent, religious Zionists and then Christian Zionists that actually want them to take over more of that region because it's the biblical region, and you've just what's going to happen? They're going to do it. They're going to do it unless we say no. And I don't see us saying no. Dude, you know as well as I do. You don't want to see the Dome of the Rock blown up and rebuilt. I don't need these books to come to fruition, bro. I mean, what is your overall thought on that? Because I know that you're not an overtly religious person. We've talked about the kind of ground level politics of it, but that there is this kind of spiritual belief system, if you will, of these major religions and some of the driving forces of that military action.
And then there are people that look at those and go, all right, we have to, like the red heifer. It's like, oh, we got to make this happen now. I had people trying to get on the show like, hey, we're going to bring the red heifer there and sacrifice it. I'm like, what is this? Like, why are we trying to make this happen? And I had never even heard of the red heifer part of these prophecies until you bring it up, and then you start reading about it. You're like, what? This is going to bring in? No, we don't want this. We don't want to start the blood sacrifice that ushers in the next wave of onslaught. At the end of the day, people have to start asking themselves, do we need to keep killing each other in order to achieve world peace? Because we're never going to achieve it if we keep killing each other. But here's another question, Jason. Is it possible? Is it possible for these people to ever get along? And I don't know if it is.
I don't know either.
I think the ones that want to get along have moved out of there, and they've moved to the United States or they moved to Europe.
Listen, I would say this. I'm sure there are pockets of people that can get along. Okay, they have the means to do that. But when you're in a certain environment and you don't have those means, I don't know that you're ever going to be in that place, right? And look, there are 8 billion of us. The problem is that technology is now moving at such a pace that, you as well as I know that there is this sect of people that aren't really even concerned about religious battles, maybe not even, regional battles. The resources are somewhat important, but their main motivation is the social engineering of taking over the species, in transhumanism. And that's kind of the whisper as all this stuff goes. It's in the background. I think it had a lot to do with the hate and lie shots. We can't really say the name there, but I think transhumanism on a multitude of levels, continues to be at that agenda. I really hope that people like Bobby Kennedy and now Robert Malone, who I've had on the program a couple times and I really like, can stop that. I don't know, right? I don't know because, again, we haven't seen anybody arrested for massive crimes since the 80s. And when I talk about the 80s, I brought this up with Giuliani when I had him on because Rudy came in And, he's got his book on the Bidens and the crime family, and they're going to jail. This is before, I think this is October, before the election. And I stopped him like 5 minutes in. I go, Rudy, no one's going to jail, bro. I don't know what you're talking about. Like, that's not a real thing. And he's like, well, I'm a prosecutor. And he just kept making my point. Like, he brought up Bill Barr and the Hunter Biden laptop. I'm like, let's stop. I'm like, Barr had the laptop 11 months before.
Everybody had it.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know what you're talking. And he's like, you're proving my point. And he had a great time on it. But he admittedly, when I brought up Iran-Contra and the fact that's the last time we've had any kind of executive level accountability on a mass scale, right? They made Ollie North the head of that. He got book deals and TV shows and radio broadcasts and became a millionaire. That's how you stop black ops, drug dealing, and regime change.
Put him on the front page. What G. Gordon Liddy had something to do with that too, and he became a talk show host.
Yeah, G. Gordon Liddy also, again,
he's also the Watergate guy.
Yeah, but I mean, he was. That's my point. He's a bagman threat. And look, I'm not even saying Giuliani's, a great guy. Again, I ended up on this tour where, Rob, I don't know if I told you about this, but one of the most surreal moments of my life to this day. It was the second day I wasn't speaking. I'd opened this thing up and we were in this mega church building.
Did you get free Dr. Peppers? Is that what you get?
Dude, it was more like it was in like one of those big Walmart parking. There's a Walmart next to it. Yeah, but then it was like it was like a mall. But then as you walked into the church part, there was a huge coffee shop on one side. In the middle was like the church auditorium. And then there was like the offshoot parts where the media was, and then where like the little people was selling stuff for us. So I walk by the theater and I look up, and it is Rudy Giuliani, two women, and Daryl Strawberry, hand in hand, head down, deep in prayer to Jesus. And I am just like. I'm just like, I have all access to this. This is the world I live in. I watched.
Who had the most coke on him? No, Daryl's cleaned up. He's a good guy.
I'll tell you what. I watched that Daryl Strawberry and Dwight Gooden 30 for 30. It looked like Daryl had cleaned it up, and it looked like Dwight was on the sauce the entire time they were filming. and look, again, as a kid from New York. And both of those guys played for the Mets and the Yankees.
That was the heyday.
Yeah, I mean, guys.
Hernandez, all those guys.
Oh, dude.
Mookie Wilson.
I could name the entire 86 Mets, bro.
That's a basketball.
Yes, Mookie Blaylock was basketball. You want to talk 86 Mets, we go all day. Kevin McReynolds, Howard Johnson, Lenny Dykstra. Hojo. Timmy Tuffle. I mean, I go on and on. I want to talk Bilderberg because, this is a big deal. Once again, they're out in Sweden. For some reason, they've really taken a liking to Stacey Abrams. I think she's been there now since 2017 at every one. Some of the notable missing people, and I wonder why. David Petraeus is usually there. And I think this is the first time in like a decade and a half where David Petraeus was not officially on the list, or maybe that kind of scares me. Because that also made me think things were going to escalate in the Middle East, that he's hands-on in this right now. Because I think, he's usually, aside from Central Intelligence Agency, Kellogg, Brown, and Root that are going to have all sorts of contracts for this thing. So Petraeus wasn't there, but at the same time, obviously, Thiel, Karp, Freeland is another one that's been there every year. Borla. There. Karp
is a more of a recent guy. Karp and Thiel are a little more recent in terms of they started, I think, coming in like 2014, 2015.
Karp even later than that. Karp gets brought in, I think, in 2016 or 17. Thiel, he's pre-2010. I think he comes in during the Obama administration.
I think we have video of Karp doing yoga in Amsterdam.
Very possible.
2013 or 2014.
Well,
because I went in 2015 and 2016.
Well, look, I mean,
and he was already there. Because I questioned him at 2016. I said, "When are y'all taking over the world?" And he laughed, and he walked by.
Have you seen the other guy? I mean, he wasn't there at Bilderberg, but do you know what Anderl is?
No. I do know there was a rep, though. A GOP rep was there from Missouri.
Yeah, there's a couple GOP reps, actually. Some, again, people close to the Trump administration, for sure. Got to look into that. But Anderl is the Palantir AI drone company. Okay.
Okay.
And there's a guy that looks like he could be your little brother, same outfit, lesser beard, more mullet, and his name is Lucky Palmer. And Lucky just came on my radar. Now Lucky wasn't there, but like I said, Andrew was. So we'll show. We're gonna have some fun here. Dude thinks I'm having fun with him. He's gonna find out right here. So this is Lucky.
He does. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen this guy.
So now this is the new hip drone guy who brought. By the way, also involved with Meta. He's the guy that invented the Oculus Rift that gets bought by Meta. So he was employed by them for a little bit. Now he basically says that he wants the United States to be the world's gun store. That's what he wants. And we're talking about autonomous swarms, land, sea, air, you name it. And you watch, there's going to be a big PR push for this guy, just like there was for Gates back in the day, Elon Musk, etc.
Oh, he's going to be the new poster child.
I think he's the new guy. Take a look,
what do you
everybody.
think all these drone attacks are? This is marketing. The Russian attack, that was a big marketing campaign. Like, look what we did. You know, you're not going to see it now, but like 6 months from now at some weapons symposium, they're going to show you video that's angles from that Russian thing that no one had. You know, and they're like, here's how it detected, you know, countermeasures. It was able to evade them. You know, it's going to be stuff like that, and that's going to be hard. You know, China talks about 1 million drones. You know, 1 million drones are coming at you. It doesn't matter how many Iron Domes you have. You're not stopping them all.
Well, you know what? You know, I did a video on this one recently because of the talk of the Golden Dome. But I went out and found a bunch of strategic defense initiative videos. And actually, I'll show one of these right here. Right now, anybody can go back and, for instance, this is from 1987, a forum on it. I did something from 88 on SDI, and Ed Teller is the one talking about it. And for those that don't, you know, recognize that name, very big in the UFO lore and the Robert Lazar story. And in 88, he kind of goes through where he believes the SDI program is and can go relatively. And he says, look, small-scale attack, we could probably stop them all. Goes, large-scale attack doesn't matter. We're going to lose some, but we'll still have some major cities left. And he's like, he was talking about the actual logistics. To me, the talk of the Golden Dome is just an update of the hardware and software. And we've got to start being adults and realizing that there's a reason that there's an international space station. And there's a reason that Russia and China are allowed there. They have space weapons too. And space weapons are a real thing. Now, that's another great question as to whether or not, say we don't have a nuclear attack, but we do have some precision strikes that just can't be explained on both sides. I would imagine
meteor guns shooting down, and
whether it's directed energy weapons, whether it's rods from God, whether it's something that is a high altitude drone, pick your poison, right? Satellite driven, I don't know. But I do know that when the Muskernuts started to get a little bit of spry on Twitter before he bought it and talking smack about the United States to the space minister of Russia, he said we could nuke every city in 20 minutes from space right now. You know, remember when the space nuke story came out like last year?
Yeah.
I covered it 4 years before that literally they fought on Twitter about it. They fought on Twitter about it. And for those that don't know, here's just another aspect of like kind of, I would say, validate what I'm saying about these weapons. Before I think about it was 2017, 18, when SpaceX started taking astronauts to the International Space Station, it's Russia. Russia was taking all of our astronauts. They were doing it from Kazakhstan.
Right.
Yeah. So again, we have these type of alliances for a reason. And then when you dig deep into what NASA's really about, which is transhumanism and technology, and I mean, NASA's right there with DARPA, right next to them in the National Library Initiative in the beginnings of Google. Forget about In-Q-Tel. They like Larry, what is it? Larry, why can't I remember what his name is? It's Sergey Brin and Larry Page, right?
Yeah.
They actually wrote a thank you letter to DARPA and NASA. DARPA gave them the search algorithm for that technology. It's wild. So look, man, I don't want space weapons to go off either. Like, I don't need, just because he looks kind of like you do, doesn't make the killer autonomous drones a good thing in my mind.
I agree. I agree. Robot drone, the ones that run on the land, the ones that are swimming through the ocean, and which we could talk about a possible false flag on the old Nimitz that's going to be decommissioned next year. That's the perfect target. I think people don't remember when Pearl Harbor happened. It was a lot of our old shitty ships that got blown up. It wasn't like our brand new stuff. They had moved that out and moved the old ships in because they knew it was coming. So the battle begins. Look at that. Yeah, the supreme leader. Now there might be some hope of a regime change. Apparently, the prince, whoever's the descendant of the royal family, there is talking. Hoping that some regime change will come.
Listen, man, that brings it all the way back to forget about like our president not doing anything. It's 2025, bro. Kings and queens and rule by blood. And it's not just Europe. I'm not just talking about, sausage fingers Charles and the gang. I mean, I'm talking about the Saudi royal family. I'm talking about how the king of the Netherlands was also at Bilderberg this year.
Yep.
We talk about how technologically advanced we are as a species. We talk about trusting things like the science. And we literally have people who wear crowns on their head to this day that say the little guy that I nutted out with mommy gets to rule you next. Wild. Wild.
It's an interesting form of government, that's for sure. I mean, it's probably a little bit better than having a wet tart throwing a sword to you out of a pond, but that's all. We're definitely in the twilight zone. But then look at our shitty election system. Like, is our shitty election system any better? At least a king could go, all right, we're going to do this. And they go, okay, he's the king. We're going to do it.
But that's bad. I like the decentralization because you're always going to have some pushback on the bad stuff. And that's why you don't have kings.
Benevolent kings are few and far between.
Few and far between. Benevolent anybody. I am an asshole. Okay? I am. I make mistakes all the time. I ain't benevolent. I try to be a good person. Look, man, you know as well as I do. We all suck. And the more power you get, the more you tend to suck. Not everybody. I've met some really good, powerful people, I think, and I've met some really good, rich ones. Still the best person I've ever met in my life barely had 2 cents to rub together.
The homeless guy washing your window?
No, it's Kaylor Carpenter. I will always praise him and say his name. And he was a guy I worked with post InfoWars at a managed service provider company. And he was essentially a tech blogger who was a pastor who came from Missouri to upstate New York to start a church, and then started giving free rides to drunk people on St. Patrick's Day instead of cab or Ubers. Mm-hmm. Then he flipped that into not only him giving rides, but other people getting people home sober, to having tents filled with water, and would give out pizza, and then opened a community center. I mean, every time when I met him, he just married his wife and moved there, and they'd been trying to have kids and they didn't. And then as soon as everything started rolling, he was able to quit his job. He had a bunch of kids. He's got a great church. He got a great family. The Lord has truly blessed him, folks, for, what I said. He's not in it for anything else. He's not looking how to make a buck. He's not looking, how to be corrupt. He's the real deal. And I miss you, Kaylor. I didn't get to see you the last time I was in New York, but I should have you on. Dude, let's wrap this bad boy up. We've been ranting and raving for an hour. I'm sure you could go all night with that beard.
Oh, I could. I'm ready to keep stroking it. Huh?
Yeah. You've got plenty of InfoWars stuff to do. Let everybody know how they can check your stuff out, why they should be checking out the Grunions, and what else you're up to.
Well, I should also, if you go to my old YouTube channel, I think if you search Reporter Chases General Petraeus through the streets of Dresden, and and then it's Chariots of Fire version. I looped my chasing of General Petraeus while he was jogging through. There it is. Yeah. There it is. It got taken off the old channel, but I'd already put it on this one.
Okay.
And I think that happened 10 years ago. This Bilderberg.
We got 9 years ago, but I would say this.
It would happen the year before. I put it up a year later.
There you go. There you go. And I'm watching. There's a little Petraeus drag right there, and there you go. You're getting the flavor. We don't want to get pulled down with
camera guys. Good camera guys with me, and we kept it. That was an interesting time. There's two good photos a photographer took of that, and I turned it into a postcard.
And you're still doing it. I mean, I guess we haven't seen each other, because now time flies, since what, 2021, right? DC?
When they stole the election, yeah.
And even then, you were still wielding your wand of camera, like multitudes on a stick, still doing it. Miss and love you, buddy.
Yeah, what do we call that? The Warhammer. That was the Warhammer. But yeah, the Grunions are about to start season 4. The kids have been helping out more, and season 3 ended with the Grand Tardian. He was giving everybody free purines. We don't call them vaccines; they're purines. And he was giving everybody in the Karen Karenofsky, Karen Says audience free double doses of the loving needle, is what he called it, the loving needle.
Let's keep it there. We've been gaining subscribers. I'm on a thin trail on that subject. Is all I'm going to say.
All about love. But that's where it ended, and then we're going to pick up after that and what's going on. But there's an interesting fellow who follows the Great Cube. He calls it Cube, and he follows Cube, and Cube says, and Cube's always telling him things, and yeah,
I bet he is.
He's got a crazy girlfriend. And, it's an interest, and then there's Dr. Phony Slouchy, who's kind of the head protagonist, and Gil Bates. So we've
good old Gil, good old
Gil Bates, and they're trying to pick the next president for a while because Big Boy Schmo just wasn't working out. They had to send him on an ice cream cruise.
How about that? So, yeah, but I don't know if Donnie T is any better. And I want those things that we talked about earlier, the rhetoric.
Yeah.
Let's not start World War III. That's all.
Let's not start World War III, and let's come back and get some things fixed here. And I hope he can salvage some of. Like I said, this month the Border Patrol didn't have any illegals released into the country, and I think that's a win.
You're not wrong. I travel a lot too. I saw those same things on planes. I was disturbed and disgusted by it. I realize we need a country and borders. We also need to not blow each other up, and I need to stop seeing dead kids in my damn feed. I don't care if they're white, brown, black. I don't like it. It really bothers me.
I'm sick of it too.
Rob, Go ahead.
That's it. You can follow me on Dude's News. I got nothing else to say. Thank you, Bermas. It's good talking with you the other night. I forget why we talked. Somebody was talking, giving you some accolades. Old Sam Tripoli.
Yeah. God bless Sam Tripoli and the good people over at Broken Simulation and Tinfoil Hat and all that good stuff. All right, my man. We'll do it soon, okay?
Have a good one.
All right, later on, brother.
Hopefully we don't blow ourselves up.
Yeah, let's hope we can do it soon. There he is, everybody. Rob Dew, InfoWars producer. You know the drill to me, folks. I need your help. $5, $10, $15. It means the world to me. The links are down below if you don't want to do the Buy Me a Coffee. There is a PayPal and crypto as well. As always, it is not about left or right. It is always about right and wrong. And the right thing to do is figure a way to de-escalate this immediately, and start getting back to a place of peace, love, stability, and happiness. I love you guys. We'll see you on the flip side.